Laurel, I have been looking forward to this conversation. You happen to be sitting next to me at a dinner, I think several months ago now, and
Yes,
I've not met anyone more excited about this topic than you. So, been looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
absolutely. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for inviting me and one of my favorite topics to talk about, Amos. So,
Well, before we jump in, and we're going to post Laurel's LinkedIn so you guys can go connect with her. Really quickly, were you at career day in grade school? Did you say you were going to be doing this? Was this the career you picked? How did you get here at the Cliff Notes version?
oh gosh, well, yeah, everybody's got a journey. So it's started out in manufacturing. No, I wanted to be a computer scientist.
Okay.
And calculus just was not my thing. So I switched over to business and especially operations was something that just spoke to me. So got into to manufacturing, but really still, the tied to computers and so my
And
entire
technology.
career has been, yeah, technology has been a center of that. And so I was always the software person, the database person, the
Right.
whatever, that people went to. And I just kind of have stuck with that. And so, yeah, I think and knowledge was something that I really stumbled into about 16 years ago,
Wow.
where I was running support. I was running a small support team, and I was just like, we're just getting all these questions and the same questions over and over, both inside and outside the company. And so that was what, like, I get questions from salespeople, from consultants that come into support, as well as customers. So I went to a meeting that was hosted by the Consortium for Service Innovation. They're the founders of KCS, Knowledge Centered Service. It was Knowledge Centered Support at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a thing, there's something, there's a methodology, there's a whole community. And it was like mind blowing. I literally came home and got my team all in a room and said, you guys have to hear about this thing. and and so we launched it, and like in like 3 months, and we started practicing KCS.
I spent a couple of hours with you at dinner, and 16 years later, the passion is still there. I
Yeah.
wanna I guess where I want to start is you know, you let's go back to who this is all for, humans, right? Contact center reps and customers and what have you. So I haven't run used to run global support operations. I haven't done that in 10 years, but I am in them constantly as someone who helps companies fix them. And I'm surprised that the frontline agent experience, the human experience there is still painful. There's still high cognitive load of I'm constantly I have to remember this, I have to go check this. And I don't feel like that has gotten, incrementally or actually dramatically better than it was 10 years ago. What are your thoughts on that sort of human experience?
Yeah, so first of all, I think that all of us have stories that
Yeah.
we can share about an experience, calling a call center. I remember one where I I mean, it was hours. It was literally just hours of time, of my time and their time, of trying to figure out why, I couldn't upload a document to an accounting software, getting this error, um, going through the levels, getting escalated to another person, and finally getting to, the secret room, of people is what it felt like, right? That were tucked away, only the special kinds of problems, that they were supposed to solve. And then I talked to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know about that. That's
There's the
this
answer.
problem, and here's the answer." And you're like, why didn't you share that with the people that you work with? You could have saved your company and all these people from so much pain of going through, the troubleshooting steps and the failures and and all these things. And so I think that, you know, that experience keeps me, invested in how to actually break down some of those walls, and that escalation, that it's like once you throw it over to somebody else, you are like, I'm done, right? And so, but what we need is stay with it, learn, figure out what they did, watch what they did, and then the next time that
Don't
doesn't
get
have to get
transferred.
escalated. Yeah,
Right. I don't get
right.
transferred all the time. I,
That's
I
right.
do think though that if you talk to people, even people who are not in this business, and they talk about any bad experience they have with the call center or with the human, they always say to me, that person wasn't trained properly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I called and I asked for something and the person couldn't or wouldn't do it. And I go through all this rigmarole. They always leave the call with there's a training problem. I think, and I think you would agree that what they really mean is there is a knowledge problem gap there. Not that the person didn't remember it, they may not have access to it, but there is a knowledge. Is that how you sort of think about customer service that breaks down as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think we get busy. There's lots of reasons. There's metrics, there's all sorts of reasons why people are very focused at the task at hand, at answering the one question to the one person that they're interacting with. And they don't really often think, oh, should really write this down,
Mm,
and so that I can use it for next time, or so that someone else can use it for next time, right? And so I think that that's one of the things that a methodology like KCS, where it's actually a part of your workflow, it's a part of the process that becomes the way that you solve that problem, so that you hopefully don't have to solve it again. You're literally just solving it once and you're writing it down. And the other thing that I've been a consultant for companies. I've run education. I've run support. Everybody has a method, because there's no way that you can keep it all in your head unless you've got an eidetic memory. So people have these different you know resources available. So some use a OneNote, some use a knowledge base, some,
Post-it
right? And
notes.
so exactly, literally, yeah, these in fact, I have a story where I was my current company, F5. We were in the midst of launching KCS and doing some training, and I walked by, out in kind of the bullpen, all the cubicles. There was a big, huge whiteboard on the board, where people, they're walking into the kitchen. It had a an error code, an error message on the whiteboard, and like 3 steps: do this, do this, do this. And it was circled, and it was do not erase. And so I took a picture of it, and I'm like, who wrote this knowledge article? Because that's what it was. It's like, okay, so all the people, I mean, we're a global company. So there was all the people in all the different call centers. They didn't see that whiteboard. Our customers certainly couldn't see it, right? So to me, that's the piece where it's like, yeah, we're constantly learning and talking to people and all these things, but to me, it's the act of getting it out there and getting it to so that everybody else can leverage from it. And that's where, going back to your question, why, is it really a knowledge problem? Absolutely. The person that probably, had a call from a customer that, encountered that error, they didn't see the whiteboard, so.
Love that story. And I think it's a good segue into why this problem is so hard. I
Hmm.
and and this might be a provocative statement. I think there is no company on earth with up-to-date knowledge, meaning like up to the minute. Why at the heart of it? So perfection is not what we're after. But why is this whole business of information sharing and updating, why is it so hard?
Yeah. It's such a complex topic. It's so fascinating. I mean, knowledge, when you think about knowledge, when I think about it, it's this fluid, complex, kind of chaotic thing. And for example, if I ask you, how confident are you in what you know? And that's like, it really depends on what it is, right? And so eh, we often we don't really even know what we know until someone asks us a question, right? And often I learn from the questions. So I may think that I'm an expert in something, but then somebody asks me a question and I'm like, "Oh, crap, I didn't even know. I did not even think about that, right?" And so you've got all these different perspectives. And the other part that I think is so hard is, how valuable is your knowledge? That question is, it's like, it's so diverse. It's so, it's like, what's valuable to you may not be valuable to me. And so this is what is so interesting about AI, which I know we're going to get into in a little bit, where the machines are trying to also suss out some, this very complex topic that I think there's still going to be, humans, involved in all of this. And so to me, knowledge is, there can't be enough. It's, it really needs to be thought of as an abundance,
Mm,
abundance model, not a scarcity. And I think the other part that what I hear from people is, well, I don't know if I want to share my knowledge with you.
right.
I
It's
don't
what
I
makes me
don't really
special.
trust you. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. That's what gives me power. So to me, it's also a leadership challenge, right? And especially running these organizations where, um, I know that there's a lot of leaders that are talking about knowledge, and the act of sharing the knowledge is the where the value comes from, not the actual knowledge.
I love that reframing. And I think that tends to be at the heart of the change in hearts and minds. I want
Hmm.
to get into KCS, but before I get there, I want folks to get to know you a little bit. So talk about a purchase under $50 that was the most impactful to your life. And while you're giving that some thought, I think mine is the neti pot. I suffer from allergies, and this thing is, there's a picture of someone who's doing it elegantly. When I'm doing it, it's like I'm waterboarding myself. But when things get really, really, really bad, it's a
Right.
lifesaver. It's a lifesaver. It
Mm.
clears up my
Yes,
sinuses,
yes.
and life is good. What would your answer be to that?
Yeah. So this, I don't know. The first thought that I had was my Audible subscription.
Okay. Okay.
I know. So to me, it's like that unlocks
Yeah.
so much for me.
Yeah.
I learn a ton from books. I've got a huge playlist. I don't often get to listen to it as often as I like. Anytime I'm, driving to work or on an airplane or, and Audible is, I'm a reader too, but to me, Audible just gives you that extra, that the person's voice there, you can hear the emotion, the
Yeah.
storytelling is just, I just love it. And so just a couple of books that I have listened to recently. One is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Classic. Yeah.
Switch. um, Let Your People Go Surfing,
Okay. I
um,
haven't heard. Okay.
by Yvonne Charbonneau, the founder of Patagonia. Um, so they're just, and to me, and also another one is the Worlds I See by Dr. Fei Li. She's the godmother of AI, and the most interesting part of all those is their stories
That's
and
right.
how they came to be, and came to gather their knowledge and the experiences and all of that. So that is probably the most impactful for me.
I love that. I'm going to go check out a couple of those books. Um, let's get into KCS. So we've kind of touched around it, but I want to jump right in, which is knowledge centered service. I heard about KCS first a little over 10 years ago or so, and it was a game changer. And like, my head was spinning. Like, oh my gosh, this is a completely different way of thinking about this than what I had known up until that point. So, just briefly, explain what KCS is to those who are unfamiliar.
Sure. So KCS is about capturing knowledge during an interaction with someone, a requester, somebody who's requesting information and knowledge, and a responder interaction. And it's about understanding how they're describing it in their context, and but making that a byproduct of the problem solving process. So
Mm,
it really becomes the way that you solve problems. So and I have a story. So I have a story where I was talking to a support engineer, and we were part of a KCS adoption program, is to do a knowledge assessment. And so you do some focus groups. And he said to me, I can't write. So, I don't see the value in, the knowledge base. And I said, tell me more about that. What do you mean you can't write? So, well, I'm just not a good writer. I don't, I've never been a good writer. And I said, well, but you're a good engineer. And I know that because I've seen you, and you have conversations with our customers. Oh yeah, I do that every day. I said, is that always on the phone? Is it always verbal? Oh no, I write emails to them and I put case notes in. And I said, well, that's writing, isn't it? And he said, well, yeah, but it's not like, pristine, like all the knowledge articles that you see out there. And I said, but what if it doesn't have to be?
mm.
And I learned that the next day from one of my teammates that he went and wrote an article.
Wow, wow.
And
I
I was
want
like, yes.
I
So,
wanna I wanna lean in on that part. And again, those of you who are not initiated with KCS, I'm sure Laura will give us some resources to get smarter. I think
yes.
everyone in service and support needs to just have. You don't have to join the cult. I kid. You don't have to embrace it fully, but I think understanding will help you even at a level. One of the things that I found that was a struggle as someone who was new to it was this democratization of knowledge part. Like, I mean, whether I'm working with companies in regulated industries, the notion that some frontline representative will be responsible for authoring any piece of content was just sometimes revolting to the upper management. And you just shared an example where even the frontline person is me. I
Yeah,
am the one who is going to. I don't trust myself to be the one who authors that. I want you to talk about that part of it because I find that there's lots of things that mindset is. I find it difficult for many.
sure. I mean, it's a constant struggle. And I think that what I loved about the story that I just told was, obviously there was this light bulb moment for
Mm,
that person
yes.
that gave them the confidence. And so I
Yes.
think that that's where, like, there's so many people out there that have, this uh, risk
Yes.
tolerance, and they're
Right.
saying, just not sure. So part of KCS is really unlocking the confidence in people to say, what is your potential? What is, what can you do? But it also is very structured. So it's not that you can write anything and put anything out there. It needs to have high quality. And
Yes.
so there's a whole content standard, and there's quality, measures, and all sorts of things. And a lot of people use, they do training, and they have a license model to say, okay, so get your training wheels, and get used to doing this brand new way of doing my job, way of working. Um, and write some articles, but don't publish them yet. And maybe just give them to your coach, give them to a couple of people to say, hey, what do you think? Is this good enough? And speaking of good enough, one of the kind of the mantras is sufficient to solve.
Mm. What
Um,
does that mean?
and and so what that is I don't need to write in complete sentences. I mean, if you think about how you get your knowledge about anything, I go read articles, um, about the news, and to me, it's the timeliness of the content is
Yes.
so much more important than whether there was a typo, right? So so people are they're way more lenient on, you know, I mean, in certain places. And I definitely think that there's compliance and regulation, and there's definitely times where you need it to be very, you know, very
Word for word.
pristine.
Yeah.
Totally, right. So but a lot of this is, if I'm dealing with an issue, maybe we've got, a log4j or some sort of security breach that everybody needs to know about, and seconds matter. I need to get something out that says, here's the symptom, here's what's going on. We may not even know how to fix it yet,
Right.
but
Right.
but to me, a lot of what people are looking for is, am I the only one that's dealing with this?
Yes.
And oh no, I found an article and it actually says, we're trying to work on this and we will update this as soon as we have more information. That can actually give people peace of mind and stop them from calling and panicking, that, oh yeah, okay, they've got it. They're working on it. I'll let them be. I'll let them figure it out. And then I'll come back in a couple hours and see, what happened.
Love that embracing sufficient mantra. There's when I used to do these workshops, these KCS workshops back in the day, one of the aha moments was always, particularly in highly regulated industries, so like, well, Amos, every word that comes out of our mouth and all of this. And so I would ask the question, this is some of the principles. KCS is such a mind shift. Again, I those of you listening who are not familiar would have to really get educated. One of the things it talks about is like knowledge isn't pristine. And I remember this healthcare company. They were in the provider space. So we did an audit of, let's just see. And we found, and my gosh, he was so mortified that in over 30% of customer inquiries, the representative gave incorrect or incomplete information. Now, this is in a highly regulated,
Yeah,
like no
right.
malice, no, they weren't like life or death, they weren't like hugely consequential, but it
Hmm.
was just to sort of point out that, well, you live in this, what you think is this really secure, pristine place where the only five people who are allowed to ever create any content are the ones trying to keep up with this thing. And the reality is, either because they haven't updated it or whatever it is, today, as you are sitting here right now, 30 something percent of the time, your people are unknowingly, unwittingly giving out incorrect information in a highly regulated
Absolutely. Right.
uh, industry. And I found that then starts to kind of open people's minds in reframing that, hey, look, I don't think embracing this is going to make you worse off, right? Like, like if you think this is going to break this perfect thing you have, right?
Right.
No, it's not. And maybe the thing I love the most about KCS is there's plenty of technology, and we're going to get to technology here in a second. But it's much more than that. It's actually less about technology, at least the way I kind of take it. and more around the process and people. Talk a little bit about how you
Oh
kind of,
yeah.
make that shift.
Yeah, so I think that it comes back to just talking about knowledge, and knowledge is so personal.
Yes.
Um, and if you think about how you share your knowledge, and when you decide to share your knowledge,
Mm,
I think that that's really the point where, how much am I actually going to share, knowing the audience. So it is less risk if you're sharing it with a single person, right? And if you're not quite sure, you're you're more apt to say, okay, I'm going to share this, I'm not quite sure, go try it, tell me, and give me some feedback, right? And so KCS really just, it still does that, and but it allows you to document it, set it aside, wait for the feedback to come back and say, yep, that worked, and then we'll send it on its way.
mm,
And so it's but it does take some time, because I think for people, they still think that, oh, I have to be perfect. I have to have the right answer. Well, first of all, the right answer today is not going to be the right answer in a week, in a month. And that is going to live out there for, a long time. And so depending on your archive policies and various things, but I would argue that people still get value from something that is obsolete.
mm.
I
Go
mean,
on. Say more.
if you think about when you're trying to fix your car, and you're trying to figure something out, and you're having a problem, and you've come across a video or a knowledge article that was similar to a problem that your car is having, it probably got you closer to
Mm,
figuring out what the problem is.
right.
And
Right.
it didn't, and just like you said, it's not like somebody went and sued somebody because they had this obsolete piece of knowledge out there for them to find. They actually got value. They may have given it a thumbs up. Hey, this actually helped me then go search for the thing that I was really looking for,
Right.
So,
It's progress. I love how you describe it as agile,
hmm
agile knowledge management, and I want to get into a little bit of compare and contrast because most of the world, for better or for worse, don't follow KCS with the level of rigor. So when I hear agile, I think about kind of my world where we're going from agile to waterfall and all that. So the status quo is I go out and I mass produce knowledge, right? Like we go out and we just put it all in there, even if no one's ever going to read it, because this then only happens once every 20 years. We just crank it all out. So that's a big change from saying, well, the way knowledge is created I think the terminology is a byproduct of
right.
solving issues. So you've done this
Yes.
multiple times. Talk about that shift from do I not now put that, is my knowledge base now incomplete in your world? Like how is this like I'm trying to wrap my head around going from I'm used to just putting it all out there and hoping they would come versus creating it as you go along.
Yeah, so it's a collection of experiences, and a lot of times I like to uh, think of it like my email, my inbox. I mean, you have all these conversations and all in and responses, and there are so many times where I, in the future, have a conversation or need to go refer back to a conversation that I had through my inbox. Um, and I'm so glad that I had that in an email and documented, because I didn't write it down, but it was there. And so I can go search and go find it, um, and help me with whatever situation. So I think that the abundance of knowledge and putting things out there, we have absolutely no idea when someone is going to need a piece of knowledge and for what purpose.
Mm,
And so there are a lot of times where people, I hear people talk about, sport engineers testimonials and say like, you just saved me a week because I
mm,
found your article and
mm,
you wrote it down and you didn't finish it
mm,
because the customer ghosted you or whatever, right? And but you wrote that article and you put it in the knowledge base as a work in progress state, so it may not have been completely done, but it still helped someone. And so we I know that we that is a very common objection, from people like, if why would I spend all that time
mm.
writing an article for someone? And that the key is the time. So what what I am constantly trying to help people is don't spend a lot of time. You're already documenting these things for the customer, the one-on-one interaction that you're having. So just take that, put it into, a format that doesn't have any customer data, has a few things, maybe a structure. You put the problem statement at the top and then you put the resolution. Um, so I think that it's just the putting it somewhere where everyone can
Can
see it
see it. Right.
is really where the value is. Yeah.
I I I love that. I wonder if you can share some success stories on when you embrace this. What what does the world look like on the other side when you embrace KCS?
So I would say that I love talking to customers. I
Mm,
also love talking to the knowledge workers and hearing the stories of them helping their peers. But I think that I've gone to a few um, user groups and shows, user uh, if we call it our customer event, and so we've got there's opportunity to have conversations with customers, um, and I always say, hey, do you use the knowledge base, or what do you think about our support portal? And they say, I'm in it all the time. I mean, I literally. And I said, well, what makes you go, go use it? Uh, and they often are like so many different things. A lot of times I have a particular problem, and so I need to go search for something. But I had one customer that said, I just want to be smarter. And when I look at all the knowledge that's coming out of the company and being shared there, I learn a ton about how to use the product better and make it better for my company.
and
And I
these
was
are
like,
like,
wow, yeah.
what about internally? What does it look like for tell me on the other side of the
Yeah.
frontline reps and the internal and the knowledge people? Are people threatened? What does the world look like on the other side of this for the humans
Oh,
internally?
I know. So I would say it's all over the place. So you have, I'd say that again, you've got maybe the evangelists, the early adopters, the people that dive right in and want to try something new, and then there's others, kind of that the majority that kind of sit back and it's like, is this going to be good for me? Um, but to me it's so individualized,
Right.
what I've seen where somebody just has a scenario that they say, I just don't have time for this. But I had one engineer who nobody wanted to talk to, who was like the smartest engineer, and had been at the company for 20 years or whatever it was, and everybody was so intimidated to go ask him a question. and and so I said, I remember having conversations with them, and saying, but if you give them that and document it, they don't have to come and ask you,
That's right.
because I know you get irritated when
People
other
are
people come and
right.
ask, right? But how else are they going to learn? And well, they have to be in the product like me and work on it for 20 years. Well, that's you're going to be waiting a long time. And so finally he wrote something, and there were like three or four people that gave him feedback that said, "Oh, I didn't even know that was how that worked, or a way to troubleshoot, or whatever the thing." So I think that for him that was something, but others, like a brand new person, and a brand new person that just starts, they often are the people that find the most value. In fact, I had somebody, that they became a licensed publisher in 3 months, which is pretty quick, because they just said, I use this for every case that I solved. I searched and I found answers, so I'm going to keep
Pay
keep
it, pay
adding
it,
mine, right?
pay it forward.
Yeah, I want to keep it going. That's right.
That's amazing. Before I let you go, I want to talk technology for a bit because how do we
Yes,
have a conversation without bringing up AI? Like I think it's
I know.
illegal now. The first place I want to go is talk a little bit about how technology is making the implementation of KCS easier or harder. Opine on what advancements have helped making this a reality.
Yeah, so I would say that, um, that's another complex question, because I can see it. Gartner says that 80% of support interactions are going to be handled by machines in the next 5 years, or
Right.
something like
Right.
that.
Right.
So, but so I definitely think that some of the simpler questions, we're already looking at ways to automate article creation
Okay.
from something that's unstructured, like a case note, something like that. So I think it's going to make it easier to do those things. We're still going to be dependent on humans. It's coming back to
Mm,
the knowledge, their tacit knowledge that is in their head. Um, the machines aren't going to be able to get that until someone articulates it somehow, right? And but the other part that concerns me, frankly, and is how much in these interactions, I'm learning from you in this interaction as we're having a conversation, and the critical thinking that's required, the creativity, the innovation. I don't think that's going to go away, and especially when things, if we get all the easy things out of the way and all that's left are the things we've never seen before, um, we're still going to need humans to go troubleshoot and identify, what's causing some of these issues.
I
So, yeah.
I agree. I agree. Lastly, if someone's listening here and they're like Googling KCS for the first time and they're in there or they're starting to dabble, can you just share where the heck do I start if I'm new to this? Where do I go?
Serviceinnovation.org is the website for the founding body and certified founding body of the Consortium for Service Innovation of KCS. Um, and you'll find lots of content out there that gives you an overview. You can get connected with certified trainers to bring somebody in to do training at your place of business. You yourself can get certified in the practices. There's a 500-page document that you can read to become certified. So all sorts of resources out there. And you can also become a member. And becoming a member gives you access to a community of practitioners around not just KCS. There's other intelligent swarming and the customer engagement models. There's lots of different innovations around service and support, and that's part of that.
Listen, I think this is a critically important topic, and I'm so glad you came to share with the audience because I've said, knowledge is the oil that makes all service and support run. When we interact with customers, it's two things. They're asking us to answer questions for stuff, and they're asking us to do stuff. Like that's the whole ball game. And your AI is not going to work well. None of it works well. Your employees, nothing in service and support works well if you don't get knowledge correctly. And I happen to think that KCS is the most optimal way of getting there. It requires a mental shift that we've talked about on this call. You gotta, but once you do, the payoff is quite incredible. So I
Agreed.
am so glad you came on to share this with us. On your way out, are you optimistic about the future of service and support? Are you pessimistic? Are you in the middle? How do you feel?
I'm very optimistic. I think that there are tons of opportunities for innovation and merging knowledge and AI. I think that they complement each other, extremely well, and especially the abundance of knowledge is literally what drives AI and machine learning. So they're going to have a very symbiotic relationship for many, many, many years. I think that's my prediction.
Awesome. Laurel, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to put
Thanks, Amas.
your LinkedIn on and people can go connect with you and ask some more questions. Thank you so much for
Great.
coming on. Hope to have you
Thank
again
you.
soon.
This is great. I enjoyed it. Thanks.
You've been listening to an Amos Talks production.